generally speaking, like companies don't do a great job hiring for storytelling as a skill.
The rebrand is dead. Like, long live the new rebrand, which is, I think, starting with the narrative, understanding why are we here? Why do we exist? What makes us truly unique?
I'm really excited to bring up our guests today. Mike Berger and Kevin Wu are the founding partners at Harmonic Message. And I've known Mike for several years. We worked together at Gainsight where he ran product marketing for us, went on to SurveyMonkey, ClickUp. He was a legend at Marketo in the days before Gainsight. And honestly, one of the smartest kind of product marketing leaders that I've come across in my time working in technology. And through Mike, met Kevin Wu, who's at Airtable and Salesforce, and one of just, again, the sharpest minds that I've met really around building kind of emotional, authentic storytelling for B2B. So when it came to kind of figuring out this topic, or talking about this topic, candidly, there's no one else that I wanted to reach out to first than these gentlemen. So let's go ahead and bring up Mike and Kevin to the stage. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Mike, I think you're on mute already there. Can you hear?
Such a rookie. I told you it's been a while since I've done a lot of that. You know?
All good. We're also, by the way, competing with what might be OpenAI's announcement of AGI. Very rude of Sam to not push it off by a couple hours at least, knowing Golden Hour Live was happening right now. But well, no.
Hopefully that's like, yeah, I mean, I remember I met a friend of mine, a CMO actually, and we met just before like the pandemic really, really hit. And it's been years since we got together, and we just got together a couple of days ago. And we were thinking about the ChatGPT 5 and like kind of what's happening. We're like, hopefully this isn't another one. Like, like a week later after we meet, now the world's getting.
This is the real talk. Okay, this is where this stuff is going to happen. So
yeah, exactly.
We're going to tune out of that and tune into this.
Totally. What do you guys think? What's your bet? Is GPT-5 officially our AGI moment, or whatever's happening on the other stream right now?
Well, I'll say one thing. I will say that, like, maybe, I don't know how many years ago, but call it 5, 10, certainly 20. If you, showed someone from 10, 20 years ago, ChatGPT 4, they would probably say we've already achieved it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you actually define what AGI is? Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of, for me, like, question number one.
Totally.
Yeah. We're all excited. I'm excited to see what they're coming out with. Of course, we use these tools like every day. So
yeah,
we're like,
we have to connect.
I'm excited about Agent. I mean, AK, I got a Greece trip. I've been using Chat AK for my help with my Greece trip. So it'd be great to use Agent and have the thing book it for me. That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, let's get to the topic at hand. But before we do, I thought it might be worth just introducing Harmonic a little bit and just give the audience a sense of just the work you're doing. Again, I've sort of introduced you both as kind of the sort of in-house practitioners that you were and kind of your work experience, but now you two have come together to really kind of build a practice around storytelling for B2B. So do you want to maybe just quickly tee that up before we kind of dive into the questions?
Yeah, go for it, Kev. Take this one. Awesome. The name came from Kev, so it's only fitting.
So for those of you that don't know our backgrounds, Mike and I, we've been product marketing folks and leaders for a long time. And if you've ever worked with product marketing, like it's a really interesting role in tech companies, right? We kind of see it as like the other side of the coin. So if you have like product management on one side, kind of acting as the glue between all the aspects of delivering product, and then you have the other side of the coin, which is everything else that sort of faces go to market. And then the PMM is like, we see that as very much the glue that connects all the aspects of go to market, right? And then so it's a role where you do a lot, And one of the aspects of what you do is narrative and storytelling, positioning and messaging. But it is a very unique skill set, and it's not easy because you have to understand so much about so many aspects of a company and the market and the competition and the customers, the technology, so on and so forth. And so, the idea was, we've worked, Mike and I have worked with many different firms across all different types of sort of agencies and consultancies, but there's not really a firm that does strategic narrative through the lens of like really, really deep product marketing. And so, our hypothesis is there's room in the market for a firm like Harmonic. We work with CEOs, founders, CMOs, executive teams, very, very challenging environments. It's a puzzle, right? Each positioning project is a puzzle, and you need puzzle masters to solve those puzzles. So that's
And
why
I
we say,
think, yeah, and I think the only thing to add is sort of like, I think anyone who's been in marketing long enough and have worked with outside firms, like, whether they're consultancies or agencies or what have you, especially those that sort of focus on brand, that they end up sort of like staying in the clouds a little bit. Like they're very much focused on that inspirational story, but getting them down to ground level in terms of like, okay, well, what are you actually selling? Like, what does this thing actually do? Is hard. And then on the flip side, you've got a lot of product marketing teams that are operating really tactically, and they're very focused on the speeds and the feeds, the features and capabilities, and they just haven't built the right muscles and skills to elevate the message, right? To create that inspirational story. So you get this kind of gap in the market. Is that to say that there are no agencies and consultancies around that can't come down to the street level, and vice versa? Are there product marketing teams that do a good job? Of course, like there are, but generally speaking, I think there's a lack of storytelling skills within PMM, and there's also a lack of having that ability to pull the thread down a product on the agency side. So I think one of the things that we always talk about as our biggest by far differentiator is that we look at the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
Like from that inspirational story, so it's sort of like, where do you want to take your buyer at the high level, but how are you going to help them get to wherever you're taking them, from a product.
It's really interesting you say that, because that's kind of been my experience now, having led some different kind of rebranding projects or things along those lines. Because my original bias was to talk to a brand team about doing the positioning work, and we got to beautiful kind of inspirational, just do it, belong anywhere kind of level of emotional connection. But then there was this like, we sort of got excited about that. Then the rest was sort of like the follow up, or we kind of tucked it in. Whereas in other projects that I've worked in house with, to your point, more of a tactical kind of product marketing, we sort of had great kind of launches and the positioning around maybe even the platform, but maybe lacked a bit of that heart and lacked the emotion. So that I see, and honestly, and having worked with you guys now for a year as well, like I've seen kind of what your approach to this is really differentiated to be able to kind of hit across kind of both tones. Do you think there's anything to add on this idea of like, should brand be building stories versus product marketing? Just hire Harmonic is probably the answer, but when you think about some of those, that tension between brand and product marketing, like who should tell ultimately the story?
Yeah. Go ahead, Kev. You start. I'll chime in.
I mean, I think that it's look. I think the right answer, I think, is having brand and product marketing work really well together, right? I mean, you want that collaboration, in inside, and we do that. We work very closely with creative, with brand, with every aspect of go to market. But I think that like the job. I think what product marketing brings to the table is like a really deep focus on what makes us different, what makes us unique from every aspect, not just the product, right, and the capabilities of the product, but also aspects of the company that are like the leadership, the story, the community, all those things, right? I think PMM, I think we have to decide and make bets right? It's like we don't know what the exact right answer. No one knows, but we
Yeah.
have the responsibility of, I think, of having to bring all the elements together and deciding what the story, like what the crux of the story is. And I think then we work with brand, for sure to breathe life into it, to make it better, to beat it up. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to work well together, is my thinking. But
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've worked with I've worked with brand marketers that, like, in a million years I would never rely on them, like, to build out a strategic narrative story. Like,
Wow.
no way, right? And by the way, I work with plenty of product marketers that I would say the same about, right? So to me, it's much more about the actual person than the function, right? I mean, first of all, I think that generally speaking, like, companies don't do a great job hiring for storytelling as a skill. I mean, if you think about, maybe it's, I haven't done a ton of interviewing on the brand side, much
Yeah.
more so obviously on the product marketing side. But first of all, it's I guess it's sort of can be a tough skill to assess for. But all beside the point, I think the main point I'm trying to make is that you do run into brand professionals that are great storytellers, and you run into product marketers that are great storytellers. I do think it's a rare skill, like I said, but for me, it comes down to the person. Like, if the person just doesn't have, like, a storytelling bone in their body, like, why would you ever want that person leading that effort? Like, at that point, if you've got someone in another function that's really good at it, have them lead the function. So I think we just get a little too caught up with the function versus who is the right person, regardless of where it is. Maybe it's in finance. Who knows? Probably not, but maybe.
You know what they say? They say new CEO, new logo. You heard this? New CMO, new homepage.
Yeah.
It's always new CMO comes in. They're gonna spend $1 million, very expensive brand agency, and they're gonna, like, rebrand everything. And like, it feels like you spend a lot, and all you get is, like, a skin. Oh, and a new corporate style guide, and a deck theme, and a font.
Yeah.
The fonts are really expensive, by the way. If you want to buy a custom font, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you get. And I tell, if you're a CMO out there, or you're a CEO founder out there listening right now, like, the rebrand is dead. Like, long live the new rebrand, which is, I think, starting with the narrative first.
Yes.
Understanding, why are we here? Why do we exist? What makes us truly unique? What's our category? Things like, answer those questions, and then do the branding exercise. And I promise you, the outcome will be 10 times better.
Yeah, I do agree with I do agree with Kev. Like, both teams need to be working together. Like, I think, if you think about, like, Nike and Just Do It, like, imagine if you were a tech company and no one really understood what you did, right? And you had a tagline as vague as that: just do it. Like, do what? Like, if people didn't Nike from the hole in the wall, well, that would be nothing, right? So I think what happens is that, if you often will get brand teams and technology companies that kind of really focus on, like, what can we tap into from an emotional perspective, like, that sort of, inspirational, and maybe a little bit of fun, or what have you. But then, if you're not involving the product marketing team, it may not speak at all, like, to what the company does, the value that it provides, et cetera. And on the flip side, if you leave it up to again, traditionally speaking, right, if you leave it up to product marketing team, they may nail that part, right?
Yeah.
But then it's not, like, it doesn't really, tap into any specific emotion, like, for the audience, right? That creates some buzz and energy. So I think you definitely have to, again, like, if they're traditional teams, you need to be involving both, you need to be working together so you get both pieces.
Well, let's talk about kind of the why for a good story. I mean, let's say there's a CEO or a founder watching, they've built a great product. They're like, we've used Lovable or whatever. We created a website, like, we've got the story out there, whatever, it's selling, it's all good. Or you're a CMO, perhaps, that you're kind of stepping in from more of this transactional kind of revenue orientation. What's the case for telling a good story in B2B? Why is it important? And maybe when you're starting kind of engagements or kind of reaching, talking to CEOs and founders, like, how do you kind of convey the value of telling a good story in B2B?
You want to start, Kev?
Yeah. I like we've worked with we've done about 20 engagements now in 18 to 19 months. So we've done a lot. We've seen a lot. And I'll say this, like, when whenever a prospective client reaches out to us, there's always a reason. There's a reason for why they're reaching out, right? And it generally falls into like a few buckets, like major launch tied to a big keynote, big event, always a good forcing function for us. New funding round, right? They're either raising a big round, they're coming out of stealth. Either way, a round is a great opportunity to sort of like, reintroduce the company to the market. Or there's an SKO, right? People don't think about how important these are. If you're a B2B company and you have a sales team, you if you've worked in companies with a sales team, you understand SKO is like an extremely important event for a company.
Yeah.
And so in those scenarios, you need a story, because it's essential. A story is like the core of how do you convince anybody for how you've grown, how you've changed, right? So if you're like a new company, you might have nothing. So you're building the scaffolding. That is in and of itself a challenge. If you're a company that's larger and more mature, you have the opposite problem. You're dealing with an immense amount of inertia, like just like the weight of everything you are and who you've been, and then realizing we need to shift that. It's like taking a giant cruise ship and like tweaking it like a degree, right? That's like very hard to do.
Yeah.
And so all those challenges always start with a story, because you need a story to be compelling enough to convince someone to see you in a different way, or to see you in a way that you want them to see you, right? And so Mike and I, we often tell our clients, like, the story is sort of like the strategy. It's the start of the strategy.
Yeah.
And you need it you need it in the market. You also need it to invigorate your employees, to convince them, to be working the 80-hour weeks, right? Why are we doing this, right? It's more than just the job. It's like it's a mission, it's a passion, right? So I don't know. That's how I kind of see. That's how I usually frame the challenge to our clients.
Yeah, there's like a Ben Horowitz quote. It's a longer quote, but essentially at its core, it says the story is the strategy. And we built our consultancy around sort of the thought of the story being central to everything a company does. So resonated with us, right? And so we stuck it in our pitch deck, when we pitch our consultancy to clients. And while we certainly believed it, 20 engagements in now, like it's more than just like a shallow belief. I mean, I believe it deeply, and I think one of the interesting things that we've seen happen time and time again is actually like how the strategy of a client that we're working with shifts sometimes pretty dramatically as a result of our engagement and the story that we craft with them. Some really like concrete examples are like, for instance, the product roadmap shifting dramatically. Like suddenly who they're actually building for, who's actually making the buying decision, right? How their needs might be a little bit different from a typical user, right? Like these are things that come into sharper focus throughout the engagement, and then suddenly you've got a roadmap that shifts. So I think like we've seen this play out. Not only in terms of how important a story is to sort of like inform your overall go-to-market efforts, but also like how important it is as it relates to strategy. And then I think the other thing I'd say about the importance of the story is like, when I read a great story, I feel something.
Totally.
I've read some really interesting books lately. Like I'm reading one now that is, I get emotional. And I think that's a really powerful thing. A lot of people just sort of tie emotions into B2C purchases,
right?
And there's actually research out there that shows that in fact B2B purchases are driven more by emotions than B2C purchases, which is kind of like a little counterintuitive. But one of the reasons is the stakes are so high.
Yeah.
I mean,
trust is such an important.
Yeah. If I buy the wrong thing on Amazon, like I can return it in like 2 minutes at my local. If If I buy a TV and it's horrible, like I can exchange it. If I buy someone a gift and they don't like it, like, okay, sorry, but life goes on. But man, if I like purchase like an enterprise-wide ERP and like for my company and it all goes south, like I could lose my job. Like that's how I put food on the table. So the stakes are high. So I think like emotions do play a large role in B2B purchases, and the best way, right, to sort of like tap into that is not through a list of features and capabilities. It's actually through stories. So like, we already talked about the need for both, but it's almost like you're speaking to the head and the heart. That's the way I think Kevin and I often think about it. Is like, the features and capabilities, you're speaking to like the head, right, which need to be taken into account. But the story really speaks to the heart, and it's really, really important.
You just made me think about something, Mike, which is like, when we talk to
which one, did I speak to your head or?
Yeah, you speak to my head. Yeah, you spoke to my head and my heart.
Oh, okay.
You got to both. Yeah. And so, when we like AK, when we meet with like earlier stage companies, the founders are often like highly technical. They're engineers. I'm an engineer masquerading as a marketer, so I'm allowed to say these things, right? And like, I think like as an engineer, right, like when you do that type of engineering training, okay, in school, like you don't like this whole storytelling thing, I think is very foreign, right? And you often see this like, with earlier stage companies with highly technical founding teams, like they don't necessarily like, I think they kind of see it as an afterthought. And so, you ask like, how do we talk about the importance of it? I think with that audience, it's like so important, and we have a lot we have to do to convince them of why, right? And that's why for a lot of the more sort of like technical founding teams that have like amazing product, like just like killer, disruptive, right? We when they start understanding like why this story is so important, right? Especially when they're selling to like buyers who are all super non-technical because they're like very comfortable, geeking out. I think they truly see that as well. So it's just I mean it's not an easy thing for some clients to like wrap their head around.
Totally. Well, you're talking about head and heart, and I want to stay on that for 1 second. I've long quoted Simon Sinek's "Start with Why" whole thing, which is how to go. People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. And I had that on like many a thought leadership deck or presentations that I've given in the past, advocating for that emotional kind of connection. But kind of going back to the earlier conversation, if you're stuck at the like just do it level, or like you're sort of like trying to get to that level of iconic, 3 words, whatever, that really, bring tears to one's eyes, but miss kind of this opportunity to explain the what, it doesn't really matter actually. Like you're not going to sell any shoes with just do it unless people know that you're a shoe company or whatever it is that you're selling, right? And so you two have actually started changing my mind a little bit about like, do you actually start with why, or is that just, now what, like a quotable like thing from Simon Sinek versus something that in actuality and in practice from a B2B perspective matters. So what's your take? Is Simon Sinek right or wrong?
Kev, you got a good talk. I think Kevin and I have talked about this. Maybe it depends on audience. Maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched that TED Talk. I've seen him drawing on the whiteboard, and I mean, look, I still think there's like, why is probably the first question that you want to ask, right? Like, it's still right. I think we still start with it. I think like our point of view is, you also need to answer the when kind of urgency. You do need to answer the what, and the what is like, what do you actually do? What impact do you actually drive? And I think, and this is coming from me, for the engineering, like deep product obsessive person, is you also need to know a little bit of the how, right? And to me, it's like that is like the differentiation sandwich, right? And it is like hard. I just made that up, by the way.
By the way, it's funny you were saying that. Not the sandwich, but the how is like literally. I was going to chime in and say I think the how is kind of like where the differences lie. Yeah. I've got some other reasons why, but keep going.
I think like with Golden Hour, I think there's a lot of who, right? So it's like again, it's not like this is like like a mind-blowing observation. It's just that it's not easy to make this. This is like the hardest sandwich that
Yeah.
that a marketing team has to make, right? It's
Right.
like, and and I love sandwiches. I don't know if maybe people here, I don't know why this, like, I took us to the realm of
We should keep
sandwiches.
this metaphor going for
But
another 32 minutes.
like the differentiation sandwich is like an exceptionally hard sandwich to make. And I will say that if you're working with a founder, man, they
Yeah.
have a lot of opinions about that
Yeah.
sandwich. Like, you are going to go back and remaking. We're literally making thousands of sandwiches to get it like just right,
Yeah.
We need to trademark. I think we need to trademark this, the harmonic differentiation
The
sandwich.
crunchy sandwich.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was hot off the press, like right here.
I think like I recall, so like, when you see a lot of messaging that sort of like grow revenue, save time, right? I mean,
hmm
if that's the why, that's kind of, I'm not saying it should be, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
but in many cases it ends up, you kind of get to that level of altitude. Like, if you keep, like, altitude's like something we talk about a lot. Like, in terms of the benefit, like, or the why, like, if you keep on like kind of moving up the chain, if you will, like, eventually you're going to get to grow revenue or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Or save costs or something like that, right? And then on the other side of it, like the what, like, think about. I remember when I was at Marketo and I started using, Scott. I think Scott Breaker, right? Scott's slide is the Martech landscape slide, and the first year I used it in a slide presentation was, well, I don't know, a year, but it basically there were 150 logos on that thing, right? And you could clearly see them, like, unaided. And now I think there's like, I don't know what the latest one is. Not like, it's definitely well over 8,000.
Yeah.
And I literally think you would need a magnifying glass to even make out one of the. I don't know how he probably does it in Figma, but it's and we are now all operating in the AI era where software, like, you have like AI that's able to code, and you can develop much more quickly, and therefore you can copy and replicate features much more quickly. So given and that, by the way, that 8 or 9,000, that was literally just Martech. So if you look at software across all categories, it's like dizzying the number of solutions out there, and everybody tends to sort of gravitate to like those higher level value props around growth and so forth. So if you look at it, everybody kind of starts sounding the same because they're all copying each other's features and they're all saying the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So to Kevin's point, like, a lot of the differentiation, like, is not so much in the why. I mean, there are other sort of like more emotional whys, which is different, to be fair, but still, like, I think from a software perspective in SaaS, certainly, like, that how becomes really important. Like, how do you deliver on the promise, right? That sort of is behind the why in a unique way, right? And that's really, it's hard. There's no like silver bullet. We can do our job and say, sort of really trying to pull out that differentiation and say it in creative ways that resonate. But at the end of the day, like, if a company wants to grow over the long term in a sustainable way, they need to have some sort of real, advantage. And by the way, like, I know we're going to talk about brand could be one of those things. Brand could certainly, it doesn't have to be product, but it needs to be something.
Right. Well, you're start referencing some of the AI, how AI is going to effectively add to the perhaps proliferation of available products. I think who was it? It might even been Sam Altman or someone said we're entering the like SaaS, what do they call it? Like era of basically build your own SaaS, so to speak. But the over commoditization of technology products, given that the innovation. But you all have worked with probably more AI companies doing positioning work than certainly anyone that I know, just the breadth of what you've seen. I'm curious, what are you learning around positioning AI? Because it seems like everyone's or at least there was a time there where everyone just added AI first to their like hero basically of their website. Now they became an AI company all of a sudden. But obviously there's so much more to that. So I'm curious, what are you guys seeing from a trend perspective?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll start by saying that if they haven't done it already, they might want to lead with AI last. Like that, like that could be the leading
AI
message.
first was like a 60-day sprint basically. Now it's over.
Yeah.
I'll start with like I think there are like when we work with clients, there's like two broad buckets when it comes to like AI. Like were they started before like ChatGPT blew up, like GPT 3.5. You know that there was that window where people were using it to make like rhymes and sonnets and like Shakespearean like poetry. Like we had that like that moment in the world, right? And like there are all these companies that were like before that moment, right? Like big SaaS companies, and then there are like these like new companies that were born after the fact, right? And I think like my opinion is like the companies that were born after, like they're not nearly aggressive enough on leaning into. I think some companies are. Like we see the billboards around San Francisco,
Right.
you know, that's like full on replace people, and we like roll our eyes at that. But like there's something to be said about if you're like a founder of like a company that was born like now, like you are not burdened by like all the, you know, you're not burdened by having to build a dashboard you log into so that you can show an insight to your executive about, you know, like you don't have to necessarily build that thing. Like it's an example of like just like, you know, why if you have an advantage now, you really need to run with it and explain and just lean into like what the world's going to look like in the future. You know, like at Salesforce, right? Like cloud computing was like the thing. And back in the day, that was no one knew what that was. That was like the AI of the time in like 1998, right? It's like, and that led to like the SaaS proliferation now, right? And so you think like if you're a founder like in that on this side, it's like you need to lean way more into it. Like, and I think that when we work with founders, we see that they often don't like do it enough, right? There's trepidation because you're trying to sell to people who are still kind of like stuck in this like they buy big software. But you know, I feel like you know, if you don't know where, if you're not aggressive and passionate, like how are you going to survive with the noise, right? All the AI first, because it's easy to go on a website and just say we do all these things, we have all these capabilities. But you know, like that's like how I feel at a very high level. I don't know, like if you agree, Mike, but
Yeah.
I think there's like a lot of noise. I mean, you know, there was a race to sort of like infuse everyone's message and story with AI, and now it's almost weird if you don't see it. It's like, you know, one of these things where like now like you just expect every company to be saying something significant about AI, and you know, a lot of this stuff it's like a little bit commoditized, you know, in a sense. I mean, like they're all pulling from the same models and so forth. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think what we try to tease out is like what makes your AI better and different, right? And so there were some really easy examples. I mean, like, you know, we did some work with Salesforce and on their Agent Force launch, and if you think about what makes them really kind of unique. I mean, there are other things, of course, but they just like they sit on so much customer data, right? They engage customers across so many different functions, whether it be sales, support, services, et cetera. So, you know, like it's the mixing, right, of all that customer data and AI that maybe enables them to do something with the AI that's unique and different, right? It gives them competitive advantage. A company like ServiceNow is a good example. Like their platform kind of like powers how work flows across a business, right? And so if you think about AI and then you blend that in, now suddenly you have the ability to, you know, for AI to take action, right? In ways, I mean, they're embedded in all these workflows already. So it's just a natural like place for the AI to sort of slip in and drive workflows right across the business. That's really unique to them. And so every company, hopefully, I mean, you know, certainly in early stage companies, they got funded for a reason. There's got to be something that they're doing that's a little bit different, right? A little bit better. And so what we do is we try to say it's not just about leading with AI. You really have to convince someone how AI is significantly enhancing whatever core value prop, right? That you're rooting your product in. So I think that's what we see a lot of is how the way you avoid the noise is you don't talk about it in sort of generic ways. You get much more specific and help people understand like what makes your AI or your implementation of AI different and unique.
There's something that I 100% agree with all of that. I think this is something that I've been thinking about, and I tossed this to Mike, and it could be another dumb idea. But have you heard this term called convergent evolution?
No.
It's like a biological term, okay? And like, you think of a dolphin and you think of a shark, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Vastly separated on the animal kingdom, okay? But both evolved streamlined bodies for swimming. Okay, so like, what do dolphins and sharks have anything to do with AI positioning, right? But here's what we've seen, because we've seen so many.
Welcome to the world of Stefan's brain.
Yeah,
I love it because I don't know where he's going with this stuff. So
okay, like let's see if it ends in a place that's valuable for the viewers. Otherwise, like, sorry, I apologize in advance. Like convergent evolution. Every company that we've worked with and like that, or like by the way, every engagement is like has AI involved. It's like there's no engagement that don't involve AI to some extent, right? Like convergent evolution. Like you think about the surface areas where you can differentiate your AI. Right? Like we've seen the convergence to effectively a few different surface areas, like data, context, memory, reasoning, actions, and trust, largely, right? Now, like if when people tell us like, oh, it's like so noisy with AI, how do we differentiate? I'm like, no, I challenge you, because those are enough surface areas where I think you can tell a unique story, depending on where you've invested, which part ties to your vision and your why and your who and your what, right? Like, different companies have a different investment in these different areas, and how they then ladder into a really great use case, a really great business value, a really great impact, right? Depending on like what you are, right? So you could be a dolphin, you could be a shark. You both are streamlined bodies in the ocean, but like largely have very different strategies for like how they've been successful as like creatures, right? And so like when you work with them, kind of like we start seeing, because we build so many architectures for our clients, right? And like that is itself like an art and a science, and like in that you'll see these different layers, and you've seen these, like if you look at enough architectures, you're probably going to see the same pattern. But where you invest, I think, makes a big difference. So like, yeah, of course we slap AI first, AI native, AI powered. I mean, we love those are, unfortunately, the English language only has a certain number of words. But I think like if you think about it hard enough, I think you will find a really unique and compelling story in there, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any like necessarily inherent problem with saying AI first or something like that. But that can't be all. Like it's, I think if you look at, for instance, and especially in product marketing, like the worst, like in terms of slapping the word intelligent in front of something and smart, suddenly it's not just a dashboard. It's a smart dashboard. Oh, that's amazing. Like here's my credit card or Apple Pay, right? Like I want it, right? No, it doesn't really work that way, and like all these terms, smart, intelligent, you name it, like it just becomes noise and meaningless because everyone uses it. Right. So like I think with AI, the same is true. Like you can't just say AI first or AI native or whatever words they're using and expect that to excite the audience that you're going after. It's just not going to happen.
Maybe part of that too, to your earlier point, Mike, is bringing the how kind of into it a little bit more. Right. Like, sure, you're AI first, great, but to what end and what are you enabling through that? Kevin, you're talking about
how's your life going to change?
Right.
Whether it be in professionally in their role, like, or personally, like, how is this going to change your life for the better?
Right. How do I get promoted by using this product and delivering? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
The deeper we get into, other words of the English language that we've all been using, autonomous and agentic and some of these other words, it feels like when we talk about impact there, typically we're talking about replacing human capital potentially with compute or with agents to deliver work. And certainly, you mentioned working with Agentforce and these others. Like clearly, we are heading to a world where that is, going to happen, right? To some end. Now,
It already is.
it already is. But how we position, how we talk about value, how we talk about ROI of agents can't all be just like operational efficiency, like save, headcount or whatever. Like there has to be a better way, I think, to tell a value. There's a better word for this, but an ROI story really around agents than just becoming more efficient as a business. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now, well, first of all, I guess like stepping back for a second, you know, when you think about something like efficiency or time savings or whatever it may be, right? When you're talking about marketing technology, you are kind of driving towards some benefit, similar to efficiency, right? It may be another word, it might be another thing, but usually you have to prove it out, right? I mean, you're trying to prove that if you buy my product, I'm going to provide you with some sort of benefit, and then you need to prove it out. You need to provide proof points and other people saying the same and so forth, and that's how a lot of marketing works. I
Right.
think with AI specifically, and the reason why I'm reacting to the question is like I'm not sure we even need to convince them about the ROI with AI. I mean, first of all, we've all used it right in our daily lives and at work. We all already sense just how impactful it can be. Whether you're using it for basic use cases like writing or much more advanced use cases, which we're starting to see a lot of people talking about on LinkedIn in their posts. And I mean, some people are just leveraging it in some incredible ways where they're literally like using it to build a business around them, right? And then you've got boards that are putting a ton of pressure on executive teams to lean in and leverage it, right? To drive not just efficiency, but to drive competitive advantage of some sort, right, for their companies. So when I think about ROI, I often like think about I need to establish ROI strongly in order to convince a buyer that they should invest in whatever I'm selling. With AI, I don't think there's a whole lot of convincing. Like I think it's really about convincing them that your AI driven solution or fueled solution is going to be better than another. And I think a lot of it comes down to speed, like the speed at which they can actually take advantage of whatever competitive advantage or wedge they're expecting that particular solution or area of AI to drive for them. So that's why I kind of like step back for a second. Like I'm not. It's almost like breaking the rules a little bit, similar to mobile, I guess. Way back when, like once mobile became a real thing, and it was clear that everybody was going to be carrying around like a smartphone. Suddenly, like it wasn't so much convincing people that they should invest in a mobile app. It was like
Right.
which one, So there's a little bit of there's some parallels there.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'll only add, there's like when it comes to ROI, right? You have all the cost oriented, right? And I think that it's, by the way, like it's obvious that cost efficiency productivity is probably probably the biggest value. I mean, I think it would be silly not to like just to acknowledge that. But as Mike was saying, like the speed, innovation, transformation, I think is one, right, that drives revenue. Right, you have to think like you look at like Cursor, right? Like super hot company right now, like valued at nearly $10 billion. I mean, they're yes, they're like efficient for developers when they're like building and testing and whatnot, but it's also because you can build new capabilities that you can sell, right? Like that's a huge revenue story, and as we all agree, like revenue it's always better to make more money. Like it's like spend more time thinking about how to make more money, spend less time thinking about how to save money. And then like the other thing is like risk, right? We have some clients that are in the legal like space, in the document space, in the contract space, and like risk is a huge aspect for those companies, or from an ROI perspective, right? Think about like the challenge, like if you're like a State Farm, if like hundreds of thousands, millions of contracts, so on and so forth, like how do you identify opportunities, right, to avoid issues, right? So it's a huge value prop there too. And then, again, but I'll say like if you like you have to think about the future. I know you didn't ask the question, but like where are you going? That matters in the story, right? In the brand. Like all these values are great, like to get the CFO to sign the big check, but emotionally, as Mike said, like where are we taking them? Like, do you have an opinion about that? Like, we'll ask our clients, like, what is your point of view? Like, paint me a picture of your version of the world. It's like Steve Jobs' reality distortion field, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, what do you believe in so much that this is how you will see the world, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Like, you need to make the world the way that you want it to be. Like, and you have to follow through and commit, and that's a scary thing. So again, it goes back to your brand pillar around like authenticity as an example. But
Yeah.
I know you're gonna talk about that later. But how committed can you be to that?
Yeah.
And it should be scary, by the way. If you're not terrified, you're not like, this is not right.
Not swinging hard enough or far enough. Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm terrified. So let's get into that.
Hey, everybody should be a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
or you got like, I think, yeah, I mean, I have this conversation with a lot of like, either college students or recent grads, and and they say, "Hey, I want to be a this or that," right?
Yeah.
And literally in my head, I'm like, that is. I didn't say it in these terms. I'm saying that is literally one of the first jobs that's going to be replaced. Like maybe you should go like be a plumber, right? I mean, half kidding. I mean, maybe not even half. I mean, it's like these are things that like people have to really be thinking about.
Yeah.
Very deeply, especially when you're about to launch into a career,
Yeah, totally. Well, I'd love for you guys to, and messaging has always been my Achilles heel a little bit as a marketer. I'm on the record of saying PMM is the hardest job in marketing on the marketing team. I really do think, to your point, Mike, there's like, it's a person. It's a very special, like either you have it or you don't type of a thing. And I think for me, I struggled to like come up with the story. But the one thing that, as I'm watching all of this, I had a, 15-year, 12-year career as CMO, 13-year career, became a founder CMO or founder CEO for another 3 or so. And now I'm like sitting back and watching what's happening. And I'm like, God, like what is happening and what's my place within that new world? And one of my kind of big observations is that, to your point, a lot of jobs, as we know today, are going to go away. But I actually think that a lot of marketing in and of itself is going to be automated. I really do. And especially as you think about more of the transactional side of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, like that leaves then the relational, the emotional, the authentic, like these things that are very human. And that my belief is that in a world where a machine could do it, we would still choose to work with a human who has lived experience, who has, all of these things that contribute to creating something of value, of worth, of building relationships. And so I've been experimenting with this name brand humanity for it. I don't know exactly kind of what the long-term name is, I guess, but my sense is like, in a world of increasing automation, marketers have to invest in building brands that are more human, or at least that are building that type of trusted relationship with their audiences and the customers that they serve. And so, how's that from a positioning perspective, or maybe said a better way rather than grading it, so to speak? Like, do you believe it? Like, is that, because storytelling to me is just like a fundamental element of the emotional kind of relationship that a brand can create with an audience.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one, right? I mean, I think that on the one hand, you've got many instances where like maybe your basic beliefs have been challenged around the importance of humanity and human connection. For like, you can go back to like the bank teller. Like people used to say, no, I go into my local branch because I know Mary or Joe or whatever, right? And then of course, and they even the thought of like getting their money through some machine is horrible. Now, like I don't want to talk to the bank teller. Like I just, in fact, I don't even want to go to the bank or an ATM. I just want to pay electronically.
Right.
Like it's all about convenience, right? I think like Amazon, similar. Like I don't want to deal with a person. Like it used to be like, why can't I get a person on the phone?
Yeah.
To fix my. Now it's like with Amazon, I can set up my return in like 30 seconds and not have to talk. It's like great, sign me up, right? And now you've got kind of like a situation where you're hearing these crazy stories about people having like real relationships with AI agents. They're almost like serving as their psychologists and this and that, and so like I think whatever you believe today strongly, you might believe something very differently. Like a year from now, 10 years, who knows? That all said, like I do think that there is, to your point, like something around brand where human connection becomes really important. And the reason I think this is because I think that if you fast forward 3 years from now, I don't know, I'm just making up some timeline. It could be less, it could be more, but you literally might get to a point where you can be on social, like whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or what have you, or some other social networking channel, and consume content for an entire day and then have zero idea whether any of it was real or not. Like all the video, all the people it could all be AI generated and you would have no idea.
Yeah.
And I think you get to a point where like I need something real. Like I need some sort of human connection, right? And so I think that, assuming that AI automates a lot of the stuff that you ultimately kind of want automated, like some of the examples I've used before where it comes down to convenience and so forth, assuming that all happens, like I still do believe there will be something that humans like want around connection. I think at Gainsight, we certainly experienced like the power of the community and how that often drove the purchase decision, and the actual software was sort of like a side note, right?
Right.
So I'll pause there, but I don't know how to necessarily verbalize what, because there again, when you think about humanity and human connection, using the AI agent as a psychologist, as an example, it's hard to parse that out. Like what bits of that are AI going to take on and people are going to be okay with, and what parts of humanity, like in-person events, like clearly,
Yeah.
like I was talking, like see these posts of people saying, here's my new org chart. It's like 3 humans at top and then you've got like 50 to 75 AI agents. And I'm like, oh, like I want to go to your holiday party. That's going to be a blast. It's like, so I think it's hard to know like which bits and pieces are going to be like the ones that people want, right, around like that human connection. But anyways, that was a bit of a rant, but it's a really interesting like topic to dive into.
Yeah.
Like you just made me think. This is gonna like probably date me a little bit. You made me think of that movie with Robin Williams, Bicentennial Man. I don't know if you guys watched that movie.
I remember that one.
He's like a robot, an AI that slowly becomes human, and at the very end, he was like the Supreme Court to be like finally deemed like a human.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I mean, I 100% agree. Like 3 years from now, who knows? Maybe like I feel like we're like 28 days later right now because we're not watching this keynote, and like by the time we come when we come out, like we're all over. Done. Like all this stuff was meaningless because they solved it all. But I have just a quick practical note on that, which is like, look, I think like brand humanity, right? Like you have companies, founders that are like obsessed with the product, they're super focused on it, and rightly so important, right? Like I want the cheapest, most effective, best product, and the product's gonna win, right? But I would challenge them, say like, look, why like getting the humanity side of your story right can only help you.
Yes.
It cannot hurt you, right?
Yeah.
And so you could have the most technically advanced, most powerful product, but you should also have the best human brand at the same time. And
Yes.
that, like, yes, I like, we don't envy founders and their challenges, you know, because obviously you've felt it. But I would say, I would question, like, the practical side is like, why wouldn't you want the most human brand tied to the absolute best technically advanced disruptive product?
Yeah.
It's like, do
Totally.
both, try it, right?
Especially in a world where this is all connected to work. And so there's inherent, like, there's careers, right? There's people getting paid, to your point. There's something very human on the other side of all of this kind of workflow or what have you. Guys,
But I think you should be digging into it, because that, yeah, as kind of I laid out, like, it's a little bit of a web, like, to navigate. And it's like what bits and pieces are really going to drive that, like, humanity or human connection. So I think it's a good topic for you to kind of, I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of marketers to sort of, again, parse some of that out and help them, you know, sort of figure out ways to do it.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to keep thinking and keep exploring it. But I want to thank you guys just for being on. This has been awesome. But we have a minute left, and I have one question that I'm dying to ask. So if we can do a 60-second hot take, is category creation dead?
Oh man, I mean, here's my quick answer. I think category creation used to make sense. You know, there was a time where there were, you know, 5, 10, you know, solutions in a category. So if category creation is first of all, something, you need to have something real to create a category around, just because you want it to happen. Like, it's, and who knows what that even means. Like, when a category is category suddenly created when a magic quadrant or a wave is, I don't know, but I'll just say this: if you've got at some point 75,000 SaaS solutions out there, there's probably even that many now. Is everybody supposed to create a category? Like,
right?
Are we going to have 75,000 categories? So I think there are rare instances where it makes sense, but I will also say that 5 years ago, everybody was talking about it and asking me about it based on my experience at Gainsight. And I was obviously just along the, you know, part of that journey. You and Nick really drove it. Now I rarely hear anyone asking me about it, because people are realizing that like it probably only makes sense, you know, in rare cases. B, it's very expensive.
Yes.
It takes a lot of time, right? And probably there are 3 other reasons that if I thought about it more deeply, I'd come up with, but it is not for the faint of heart. I will end with that.
I've long said if I wrote another book, it'd be called "Don't Create a Category" as the sequel.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you again so much. And where can folks find Harmonic and follow along?
What's that?
Where can folks just follow along with you guys and Harmonic? HarmonicMessage.com.
Yep.
LinkedIn
page. We gotta learn from you.
We've been so busy. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but we gotta up our, you know, I think we know the formula is just go on LinkedIn, post something that is a really provocative take that you probably don't even believe in, and then let the comments fly, and then start playing peacemaker, and in the process generate leads. I think that is the recipe.
That's basically
it. I freaking hate that game. It's disingenuous. I don't think it's super authentic, and you know, okay.
On that note, awesome guys. Have a great rest of your day.